A dog shielded a 5-year-old boy in a blizzard. But what happened next left everyone speechless. 5-year-old Tommy Mitchell didn't mean to wander away from his backyard in rural Minnesota. One moment, he was building a snowman while his mother, Sarah, cleared the driveway, and the next, he was following what he thought was a rabbit's tracks into the woods. By the time he realized he was lost, the gentle snowfall had turned into the beginning of what would become the worst blizzard to hit Willow Creek in 20 years. Tommy's desperate voice carried through the thickening snow, but the howling wind distorted the sound, making it impossible for Tommy to tell which direction it came from. The temperature was dropping rapidly as afternoon faded into early evening. Tommy, wearing his winter coat and boots but no hat or gloves, tried to retrace his steps, but the intensifying snowfall had already covered his tracks. Tears froze on his cheeks as he stumbled through knee-deep snow, his small hands tucked under his armpits for warmth. Meanwhile, the entire community of Willow Creek mobilized. Police Chief Mike Anderson coordinated with local volunteers, but the blizzard was making the search increasingly dangerous. Visibility had dropped to mere feet, and the temperature continued to plummet. "We need to find him in the next hour," Chief Anderson told the search teams grimly. After that, his chances. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what Minnesota winters could do. 2 miles away, at the old Thompson farm, a large German shepherd mix named Max lifted his head from his bed in the barn. He'd been living there since the elderly farmer passed away 3 months ago, surviving on the kindness of neighbors who left food out for him. Despite numerous attempts, no one had been able to catch him. The dog was too careful, too wary of humans. Max stood, his ears perking forward. Something carried on the wind, a sound different from the storm's howl, a child's whimper. Without hesitation, Max pushed through the barn's loose board and plunged into the blizzard. The cold couldn't penetrate his thick double coat, and his powerful legs carried him easily through the deepening snow. He moved with purpose, following his keen sense of smell and hearing. Tommy had found partial shelter under a fallen tree, but he was shivering uncontrollably. His boots and coat were caked with snow, and he could no longer feel his fingers or toes. The world had become a swirling white void, and his mother's voice had long since faded away. "Mommy," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. "I'm sorry." That's when he heard the snow crunching nearby. Through his frosted eyelashes, Tommy saw a large dark shape approaching. Fear gripped him for a moment until he realized it was a dog, the biggest dog he'd ever seen. Max approached slowly, reading the child's fear and distress. He'd known humans before long ago, and something deep in his memory stirred. The instinct to protect, to help. Without hesitation, he pressed his warm body against Tommy's shivering form. Tommy buried his cold fingers in Max's thick fur. The dog's body heat began to warm him immediately, and Max positioned himself to shield the boy from the worst of the wind. "Good doggy," Tommy managed through chattering teeth. Max replied with a deep, rumbling bark, loud enough to carry through the storm. He barked again and again, establishing a rhythm that would become their lifeline. A quarter-mile away, Officer Jenny Martinez thought she heard something. "Hold up," she called to her search partner. They stood still, straining to hear through the wind. There was again a dog's bark, deliberate and repeated. "This way," Jenny shouted, adjusting her direction. The bark continued, guiding them through the wide-out conditions. When they finally found them, the sight left them speechless. The massive German shepherd mix had practically wrapped himself around the child, creating a warm shelter from the deadly cold. Tommy was alert and, though cold, showing no signs of severe hypothermia. "Hey, buddy," Jenny said softly, approaching carefully. To her surprise, Max didn't show any aggression. Instead, he stood slowly, letting them reach Tommy while staying close enough to watch. Within minutes, more searchers arrived, followed by paramedics. As they checked Tommy over, Max remained nearby, his eyes never leaving the boy. When they prepared to carry Tommy out, he whimpered and reached for the dog. "Max," he said clearly. No one questioned how Tommy knew this. Some things don't need explanation. Sarah arrived moments later, gathering her son in her arms with sobs of relief. Through her tears, she noticed Max standing guard, snow coated his fur, but his stand still protective. "Thank you," she whispered to the dog. Thank you for saving my boy. Max's tail wagged slightly, the first time anyone in Willow Creek had seen him show such friendliness. As the rescue team prepared to transport Tommy to the hospital for checking, something extraordinary happened. Max, the dog who had avoided human contact for months, walked calmly up to Sarah and sat beside her. The blizzard raged on, but in that moment, something profound had changed in Willow Creek. No one knew yet just how much this night would transform their community, or how a dog's selfless act would spark a chain of events that would leave them all speechless. The fluorescent lights of Willow Creek Memorial Hospital cast a sterile glow as doctors examined Tommy. Remarkably, despite nearly 2 hours in the blizzard, he had escaped with only mild frostbite on his fingers and minor exposure. The doctors called it a miracle, but Sarah knew better. It was Max. Outside the hospital, the community faced an unexpected situation. Max, who had followed the ambulance in Tom Anderson's pickup truck, refused to leave. He settled in the hospital parking lot, watching the entrance with unwavering attention. Never seen anything like it, Chief Anderson said, watching through the hospital window. That dog's been avoiding everyone for months, and now he won't leave the hospital. Hospital administrator Dr. Patricia Chin made an unprecedented decision. Let him stay in the lobby, she said. After what he did tonight, he's earned it. Inside Tommy's room, the boy kept asking for Max. He talked to me, Mom, Tommy insisted, his voice still hoarse from the cold. Not with words, but I knew what he was saying. He told me to stay awake, and that help was coming. Sarah stroked her son's hair, remembering how close she'd come to losing him. I believe you, sweetheart. Down in the lobby, Max had become an instant celebrity. Hospital staff snapped pictures, and the local news station sent a reporter. The story of a formerly skittish stray saving a child in a blizzard was too compelling to ignore. But Max remained focused solely on his mission, watching and waiting. When Sarah finally brought Tommy down the next morning, the dog's entire demeanor changed. His tail wagged, and he gently approached the boy, sniffing him as if checking his condition. You can come home with us, right, Mom? Tommy asked. Sarah hesitated. As a single mother working 2 jobs, she hadn't planned on a dog, especially one as large as Max. But looking at them together, she knew there wasn't really a choice to make. Yes, she said softly. He's family now. The story might have ended there, a heartwarming tale of rescue and adoption. But Willow Creek was about to discover that Max's impact was far from over. The first surprise came when they got home. Max immediately began inspecting the house, paying particular attention to doors and windows. Within days, he had established a routine, checking every entrance before Tommy went to bed and again when he woke up. It's like having a furry security system, Sarah remarked to her neighbor Ellen, who had brought over a dog bed and supplies. Ellen, a retired veterinarian, watched Max with professional interest. He's not just any stray, Sarah, she said. His behavior suggests he had specialized training. See how he positions himself between Tommy and any new person? That's protection dog training. The mystery of Max's background deepened when Officer Martinez ran his microchip number. It was registered at a K-9 training facility in Colorado that closed 3 years ago, she reported. After that, the trail goes cold. But Max's past mattered less than his present impact. Tommy, who had struggled with anxiety since his father's death 2 years ago, began to flourish. The nightmares that had plagued him decreased, and his kindergarten teacher reported a marked improvement in his social interactions. He tells the other kids that Max is his guardian angel, his teacher told Sarah during a conference. And honestly, watching them together, it's hard to disagree. The local paper ran a feature story titled Hero Dog Continues to Transform Lives, highlighting not just the rescue, but the growing bond between Max and Tommy. The article caught the attention of Dr. James Morrison, a child psychologist specializing in animal-assisted therapy. What you have here is extraordinary, Dr. Morrison told Sarah after observing Max and Tommy together. Your dog isn't just providing comfort. He's actively helping Tommy process his trauma, both from the blizzard and his earlier loss. The effects rippled through the community. Other parents began asking if their children could spend time with Max, especially those struggling with fear or loss. Sarah found herself hosting small gatherings where Max would gently interact with children, seeming to know exactly what each one needed: a playful romp, a quiet presence, or a protective shield. One evening, as Sarah watched Tommy and Max play in the backyard, the same yard where the story began, she noticed something remarkable. The fence line, where Tommy had wandered off, now had a clear path worn into snow. Max had been patrolling it, ensuring there would never be another close call. "You're not just his guardian angel," she told Max at night as he settled into his usual spot by Tommy's bed. "You're teaching all of us something about love and protection." Max's response was a gentle thumb of his tail and a watchful gaze that seemed to say, this was just the beginning. As winter melted into spring, Max's influence in Willow Creek grew in ways no one could predict it. The first breakthrough came during a routine visit to Willow Creek Elementary, where Tommy was sharing Max for show and tell. Among Tommy's classmates was 8-year-old Sophie Weber, a selective mute who hadn't spoken since witnessing a car accident 6 months earlier. While other children crowded around Max, Sophie hung back, watching intently. Max noticed, breaking away from the group. He approached her slowly, lying down at her feet with his head on his paws. The classroom fell silent as Sophie slowly knelt beside him. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she whispered, "Good boy." They were her first words in months. It's like he knew exactly what she needed, Tommy's teacher, Miss Reynolds, later told Sarah. He didn't overwhelm her. He just waited. The incident caught the attention of Dr. Morrison, who had been tracking Max's interactions with children. "This dog has an extraordinary ability to read and respond to trauma," he explained. "I'd like to propose something unprecedented." His idea was to establish a pilot program at the school, using Max as a therapy dog for children with emotional and behavioral challenges. Sarah was hesitant. She already juggled her job at the local diner with evening bookkeeping work. But then came the unexpected call from Colorado. "Mrs. Mitchell?" The voice belonged to retired Colonel James Hawthorne. "I believe you have one of my dogs." The story he told filled in the missing pieces of Max's past. The dog's original name was Atlas, and he had been part of an elite program training service dogs for veterans with PTSD. The program had shut down due to funding cuts, and Atlas had been placed with a handler in Minnesota. But the handler died unexpectedly. Hawthorne explained that Atlas disappeared after the funeral. They searched for months, but he had gone missing. He was grieving, Sarah realized, thinking of the skittish dog who lived alone in Thompson's barn. "These dogs are special," Hawthorne continued. "They're trained to recognize and respond to emotional distress. The fact that he saved your son, that's exactly what he was trained to do." The revelation changed everything. With Colonel Hawthorne's guidance and Dr. Morrison's support, Sarah took a leap of faith. She quit her evening job to focus on developing what they call the Atlas Project, named for Max's original identity, though he remained Max to Tommy and the community. The local school board provided space, and donations helped cover initial costs. Soon, Max was working with children 3 days a week, with Sarah by his side. His ability to connect with troubled kids proved remarkable. There was Aaron, who hadn't smiled since his parents' divorce until Max taught him to play fetch. Maria, whose anxiety attacks decreased dramatically after regular sessions. And Sophie, who gradually found her voice again through quiet afternoon reading to Max. But it was during a severe thunderstorm that Max's training truly showed its depth. The crash of thunder triggered panic in several children sheltering at school. Before anyone could react, Max moved systematically through the classroom, lie beside the most distressed children, offering his calm presence until their breathing steadied. "He's not just responding to their fear," Dr. Morrison observed. "He's teaching them how to feel safe again." Tommy, far from being jealous of sharing Max, bloomed in his role as the dog's unofficial assistant. He seemed to understand instinctively that his guardian angel had enough love for everyone. "Max saved me in the snow," he told a new group of children. But that was just the beginning. He saves people in lots of different ways now. The local media picked up the story again, this time focusing on Max's remarkable journey, from military service dog to lost soul to community healer. The attention brought unexpected support. Grants, donations, and offers of help from other communities wanted to start similar programs. One evening, as Sarah watched Max gently guiding a frightened child through a trust exercise, she noticed Colonel Hawthorne standing in the doorway, tears in his eyes. "This is why we train them," he said softly. "Not just to save lives in dramatic moments, but to heal the invisible wounds day by day." Max looked up at that moment, his wise eyes meeting Sarah's. In them, she saw not just a hero who would save her son in a blizzard, but a deeper kind of courage, the kind that shows up every day, offering hope one heart at a time. Summer arrived in Willow Creek, bringing new challenges and unexpected revelations. The Atlas Project had grown beyond anyone's expectations, with Max now helping children from 3 surrounding counties. But with success came complications. One muggy June morning, Sarah arrived at the school to find a man in an expensive suit waiting by her car. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm David Reynolds from the National Service Dog Association. We need to talk about Max." The conversation that followed sent ripples of concern through the community. Other service dog organizations had noticed their success and were questioning the legality of using a formerly military-trained dog in a civilian therapy program. "There are protocols, certifications," Reynolds explained. "While Max's work is impressive, we need to ensure everything is properly documented and approved." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "Are you saying we need to stop the program?" "Not necessarily," Reynolds replied, watching Max guide a group of children to the playground. "But changes will be needed." The news spread quickly through Willow Creek's tight-knit community. Parents whose children had benefited from Max's help organized meetings. Dr. Morrison made calls to colleagues nationwide. Even Tommy got involved, standing up at a school assembly to tell his story again. "Max doesn't just help me," he declared with the straightforward clarity of a child. "He helps everybody. That's what he's supposed to do." Colonel Hawthorne flew in from Colorado, bringing with him a surprise: Max's complete training records and original certification papers. "Atlas Max was one of our most successful graduates," he told the board of review. "His ability to adapt his training to help children isn't just remarkable, it's exactly what these dogs are capable of when given a chance." But bureaucracy moved slowly, and summer crept on, with the program's future hanging in balance. Then came the day that changed everything again. A summer festival in the town square was in full swing when disaster struck. A nearby construction crane malfunctioned, sending metal scaffolding crashing toward a group of children. Max, who had been doing demonstrations with Tommy, reacted before anyone could move. He not only herded the children to safety, but immediately began working to the panicked crowd, calming those in shock, guiding people away from danger, and helping first responders identify who needed immediate attention. It was like watching a master at work, Chief Anderson later reported. He knew exactly what to do, who to help first, how to keep people calm. That's not just training, that's something special. Videos of Max's actions went viral. Suddenly, the same organizations that had questioned his role were calling to learn more about the program. The National Service Dog Association shifted from scrutiny to support, offering to help develop new protocols based on Max's success. David Reynolds returned, this time with a different message. "We like to use the Atlas Project as a model for other communities," he explained. "What you created here, it's revolutionary." The program not only survived, but expanded. Sarah found herself traveling to conferences, sharing their story, while Colonel Hawthorne watched over the local operations. Tommy, now 6, proudly helped train 2 new therapy dogs that joined the program. But it was a quiet moment that truly captured the summer's lessons. During a therapy session, a new child asked Tommy, "Is it true Max saved your life?" Tommy thought for a moment, patting Max's head. "He saves everybody's life," he answered. "Sometimes from snow, sometimes from being sad, sometimes from falling things. But mostly, he saves us by showing us how to be brave." Max, gray now, showing around his muzzle but his eyes still bright with purpose, thumped his tail in agreement. He'd found more than a home in Willow Creek. He'd found his true calling. Sarah watched as Max guided a nervous child through his fears, remembering that snowy night that started it all. "Sometimes," she wrote in her journal, "the biggest acts of heroism aren't the dramatic rescues. Sometimes in the quiet moments, day after day, when someone chooses to keep helping, keep loving, keep showing up for others. As autumn painted Willow Creek in brilliant colors, the Atlas Project faced its greatest challenge yet. Max, now 8 years old, was showing signs of age. Though his spirit remained strong, his movements had slowed, and Sarah noticed him taking longer to recover after busy days. Dr. Ellen, the retired veterinarian who'd been with him since the beginning, confirmed her concerns during Max's checkup. "He's healthy, but he's not young anymore," she said. "We need to start thinking about reducing his workload." The news hit Tommy hard. Now in first grade, he'd grown into a compassionate young boy who understood more than most children his age. "But Mom, who will help the other kids if Max can't do any more?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Rebecca Chin, Dr. Patricia's teenage daughter, had been volunteering with the program all summer. She arrived one afternoon with a proposal that would change everything. "What if we let Max teach the next generation?" she suggested, showing Sarah her carefully prepared presentation. "He's not just a therapy dog. He's the best teacher we could ask for." The idea took root quickly. Working with Colonel Hawthorne, they developed a new branch of the Atlas Project, a training program where Max would help prepare other dogs for therapy work while gradually reducing his own direct sessions. The first candidate was Luna, a gentle golden retriever rescued from a shelter. Under Max's guidance, she learned to read children's emotions and respond appropriately. It was fascinating to watch Max demonstrate techniques he'd used countless times, showing Luna how to approach anxious children or calm a panic attack. "He's not just passing on skills," Dr. Morrison observed. "He's passing on wisdom." The program evolved naturally. Max began working with smaller groups, focusing on the most challenging cases, while mentoring both new dogs and handlers. His experience proved invaluable in identifying which dogs had the right temperament for the work. Sarah noticed something else too. As Max stepped back from full-time therapy work, his bond with Tommy grew even stronger. They spent more quiet evenings together, and Max seemed to sense when Tommy needed extra attention. One night, after a particularly difficult day at school where Tommy had stood up to a bully, Sarah found him in the backyard. Tommy was crying, and Max was doing something she'd seen him do hundreds of times with other children. Simply being present, offering silent support and unconditional love. "He told me I did the right thing, Mom," Tommy said later, not with words, "but I could feel it. He was proud of me." The Atlas Project success continued to grow. Luna proved to be an excellent therapy dog, and 2 more dogs joined the program. By winter, each had their own style, but all carried a touch of Max's gentle wisdom in their work. The community rallied to support the transition. The local veterinary clinic offered free care for the program's dogs. The school board approved construction of a dedicated therapy space. Even the children who'd been helped by Max over the years contributed, creating a wall of artwork celebrating his impact on their lives. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came during that year's Christmas pageant. The school had decided to tell Max's story, from the blizzard rescue to the present day. As the children acted out the tale, Max sat in the front row, gray-muzzled and dignified, watching with what looked remarkably like pride. During the finale, Sophie Weber, now confidently speaking and helping younger children in the program, stepped forward to read a poem she'd written. He came through the storm with love in his heart, not knowing his journey was just at its start. More than a hero, more than a friend, he taught us that healing has no end. Through Max, we learned what courage could be, not just in moments of emergency, but in everyday kindness, in choosing to stay, in helping others find their way. Sarah noticed tears in many eyes as Sophie read, but Max simply wagged his tail, as if to say this was exactly how things were supposed to be. He might be slowing down, but his legacy was just beginning to unfold. 3 years had passed since that fateful blizzard night. Max, now 10 years old and mostly retired from active therapy work, had settled into a new routine. While Luna and the other dogs carried on his daily work, he remained the heart and soul of the Atlas Project, a living testament to the power of unconditional love. One crisp October morning, Sarah received a call that would bring their journey full circle. A massive pileup on the interstate had left several families stranded in Willow Creek. Among them was a group of children from a trauma recovery center, their trip to a healing retreat interrupted by the accident. They're pretty shaken up, Officer Martinez explained. We've got them to the community center, but some of these kids, they've been through a lot. Without hesitation, Sarah called Dr. Morrison, and within an hour, the Atlas Project team mobilized. But it was Max, dozing in his favorite sunny spot, who surprised everyone by getting up and walking purposefully to the car. Are you sure, old friend? Sarah asked, noting his determined expression. Max's response was to sit by the passenger door, his eyes clear and focused. Some calls, it seemed, transcended retirement. At the community center, they found 15 children, ages 6 to 12, many showing signs of severe anxiety. Their counselors looked exhausted, having spent hours trying to keep them calm in an unfamiliar situation. Max entered the room slowly, his gray muzzle and gentle demeanor immediately drawing attention. A small girl, huddled in a corner, lifted her head. Her counselor whispered to Sarah, "That's Hannah. She hasn't moved from that spot since we arrived." They watched as Max made his way around the room, acknowledging each child with quiet dignity. When he reached Hannah, he slowly lowered himself beside her, not making any demands, simply offering his presence. Tommy, now 8 and a skilled help in the program, knew exactly what to do. He sat down nearby and began telling the children about the night Max found him in the blizzard. "I was so scared," he shared, "but Max knew just what I needed. He still does. He knows what everybody needs." One by one, the children began to relax. Some moved closer to Max, while others felt comfortable enough to interact with Luna and the other therapy dogs. Hannah eventually reached out to touch Max's fur, and though she didn't speak, her counselor saw her first smile in weeks. As the day progressed, something remarkable happened. The stranded families, initially seeing their situation as a disaster, began to view it as something else entirely. Parents watched in amazement as their traumatized children found moments of peace and even joy. "It's like he's teaching them that bad things can lead to good things," one mother observed, watching her son laugh for the first time in months while playing with one of the younger therapy dogs. That evening, as the family prepared to leave, Hannah finally spoke. "Can I tell him thank you?" she asked softly. Max lifted his head from where he'd been resting. His eyes were gentle as Hannah knelt beside him. "Thank you for finding me," she whispered, echoing words Tommy had spoken years ago in very different circumstances. Later that night, Sarah found Tommy sitting with Max in their backyard. The old dog's muzzle might be gray and his step might be slower, but his eyes still held the same wisdom and love that had guided him through the blizzard years ago. "Mom," Tommy said thoughtfully, "remember when I used to say Max was my guardian angel?" Sarah nodded, sitting beside them. "I think I was wrong," Tommy continued. "He's not just my guardian angel. He's here to show everyone that love is stronger than fear and that helping others is the best way to heal yourself." Max thumped his tail in agreement, looking up at the stars that were just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. In that moment, Sarah understood that Max's greatest gift wasn't just saving Tommy in the blizzard or helping countless children through their traumas. It was showing them all that every ending can be a new beginning, and that love, in all its forms, has the power to transform lives. The Atlas Project would continue to grow, touching more lives than Sarah could have ever imagined. But at its heart would always be the story of a dog who walked through a blizzard to save a little boy, and in doing so, opened a door to healing for an entire community.